Hello guys, hope you are doing well and in a good health inshallah. Today's lecture is about another research instrument for data collection which is observation. In fact, the reason I would love just to start with a question here. We always see, but do we observe? Actually, I just want to share a story with you or just an example. Sometimes we might be in a conversation with a group of friends and you might be curious to know more. And you ask a question have you seen, for example, Sarah today? Your friend might say yes. And then you furtherly ask, what was she wearing today? You say that, I do not know, or I don't remember, or I did not notice. So in this case, you have seen, but you did not observe. Well, actually, for an observation, or for your seeing to be an observation, it must be seen and noticed with carefulness and with attention to details. Likewise, observation is, or for the definition of observation, we must say that observation is a research instrument for primary data collection, and we have said this while dealing with interviews and questionnaires too, that it is an instrument like the other instruments for primary data collection, but the type of data gathered or collected in observation is not the same type that is collected in interviews and questionnaires or tests or schedules or any other research instrument. We will see this later on. So the second criterion for observation is that it takes from the site as the medium of recording. Like if for questionnaires or if questionnaires take from their medium as a paper, that is, it is the sheet or the paper that gathers data for questionnaires, and it is the let's say phone recorder or a recorder or any type of instrument that is used for voice recording is the medium for recording data and documenting data for interviews. For observation, it is the site that is used for collecting data, which means that if, or compared to other instruments, if for the questionnaire, I collect my primary data and the answers and responses via the paper. That is, respondents are going to answer the questions proposed in a paper. If in interviews, the answers are given in an oral or verbal conversation between the interviewer and the interviewer and are going to be recorded by a given instrument. For observation, I am going to see, that is, the researcher is going to see and notice and observe the data that are naturally occurring. We will see this later on. It is mentioned in the third item or in the third criteria, but data are naturally occurring. As opposed to questionnaires where the data is written, sometimes they reflect what the respondents think, sometimes they do not. And in interviews as well, sometimes people or respondents might be lying, but in observation, nobody can lie unless we are doing research about lies. So nobody can be lying. That is, what we are observing is reality. It is natural, it is spontaneous, and it reflects how people behave in everyday life. So data that are combined or that are gathered in observation, they are naturally occurring, they are spontaneous, and there is no conditioning for them or no external effects or circumstances influencing them. So for the two last criteria are very crucial. Why? Because we are researchers, and observation can be practiced by anybody, like someone observing or a woman observing people in the street, or just like neighbors in order to check up on them or to look after them. But observation for a researcher needs to be scientific. So, in order to make your observation scientific, you have two important criteria to be taken into account. The first one is that your observation should be or should have a purpose, as we have seen in the other research instruments that before deciding about the usefulness or utilization of a questionnaire, you should decide or you should have a look at your research objectives. Similarly, for an interview, before deciding whether to use an interview or not, before developing the questions inside the interview or planning them, you should have a purpose, and this purpose is related to your research objectives, which means, or with regard to observation, in order to make your instrument or your behavior as a researcher to be scientific, you have to, or your observation should have a purpose. And by purpose, we mean that I want to observe something particular. That is, my aim is not just gossip or by a subjective curiosity, but my curiosity is scientific as a researcher. I want to find reasons for such a behavior, whether it is linguistic or social or psychological or any other kind of behavior. I want to observe how people behave in certain events or certain circumstances, like how people speak in formal and informal circumstances or context. So like that, my observation has a purpose. I want to observe a given thing with regard to my research objectives, my research questions and hypotheses, and I want to see the naturally occurring behaviors and events in reality in order to achieve this purpose. The second criterion is that my observation should be planned. Before you start or you go to the field and you start, for example, my topic is about the difference between women and or women's speech and male speech, or female and male speech, and just I go directly to the society and I start just checking or looking after people how this one speaks and the other one speaks. Okay, this can be at the very beginning or earlier stages of your research, like an exploratory type of research. But when you dig deeper and you are profoundly into your research, your observation, if you take it as a research instrument, should be planned. Like, what am I going to observe? Who are my participants? Where exactly what exactly am I going to start? Where to start? Where to finish? What to observe exactly? And what to do with the participants? And so forth. So all those things have to be planned before you choose your observation, or in order just to make your observation as scientific, in order to avoid your subjective curiosity, which is not subjective, which is not scientific, I mean. So, likewise, now certain basic questions to take into account while doing your observation or when planning for your observation. Like, what am I going to observe? And the what question generally refers in the observation to events and behaviors, like everything can be observed in while using observation except things that are cognitive. And what we mean by things that are cognitive, things that are psychological, things that cannot be seen nor observed nor noticed by the eye. Otherwise, other things can be observed, like people's behaviors or any type of events that are occurring. In addition to that, the second question is to ask, the second question is, who are my participants? That is, whom am I going to observe? Like, are they students or teachers or people, old people, children, or females, males, and so forth. So all these variables have to be taken into account while planning for your observation. The third criterion, or the third question to ask, is when. When refers, of course, to the timing. But in here, the timing can either refer to a precise timing like 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. or the morning at 10, at 11, at midday, at midnight, and so forth. As it can refer to larger periods of time, like a whole semester, or a whole week, or during the year, or at the beginning, at the end, in the middle of the session, and so forth. So it refers to the timing, or the timing is also, or we should ask about timing before or plan about the exact timing when to start our observation. Then, where of course we are going to ask about the settings, like or the physical settings, the place. Am I going to observe students inside the classroom or outside the classroom? Teachers while giving a lecture, or while being in a conference, be it a department, a university, or outside in the street, in a shop, in whatever place. Where am I going to go in order to start my observation? Then the other criteria are or the questions to ask are the duration and the frequency. How much and how many times? How much shall I observe this group or my participants, and that's how many times do I need to obtain or arrive to my research objectives. So these two things refer to the duration, that is how much time do I need to arrive to my research objectives via observation, and the frequency, that is am I going to observe my students 3 times per week, or only 1 time per week, or for the whole semester, or the whole year, for example, in order to observe their developments and their achievements, and so forth. So all those things need to be taken into account and planned before starting our observation.